apparently there's a statistic out there showing that 80% of injuries occur to people's hands and eyes. So delicate areas of the body that you really want to protect, aren't you? So that's quite a horrifying statistic. So it's burns, it's explosions, it's those kind of related injuries, which can be avoided with just a little bit of due care and attention.
How much of an increase in call-outs do you see over the firework period?
Oh, now you've got me all misty-eyed and nostalgic. If you go back to when I was a young fella, Douglas Promenade used to be chock-a-block with everyone had their own sort of bonfire every 25, 30 metres or so. Now they're much better regulated, and that doesn't, I'm not tempt fate, it doesn't tend to happen like that now. So people tend to go to organised bonfires, and I think we've got, as a population, a greater awareness of environmental issues, so hopefully people do the right thing and don't have that rubbish that's producing that bonfire that's producing copious amounts of horrible thick acrid black smoke. So I think people are a bit more savvy and a bit more streetwise now.
But what kind of incidents is it that you do tend to get called out to? Is it people who've injured themselves, or do you see cases where people have maybe had a firework go off into a hedge and cause an incident there?
We've had an incident of that last week, just at Kerristal, further along the Marine Drive from yourself here. Now then, there's a time frame for displaying fireworks, so whoever did it was out of the time frame, which is illegal, £2,500 fine if you're caught. But they set a firework off, and it caused fire to where it landed. It set fire to the surrounding area. So that kind of incident. Piddled rain all night last night, so everywhere's a bit moist and damp out there at the moment. But not so long ago, best summer on record. If we get some favourable winds and it dries up again, things can change in a matter of hours. So just again, people just to be a bit heads up, just anticipate where the fireworks going to go, what's going to happen, and just be a bit careful.
You mentioned there that there is a time frame for setting off fireworks. What is that? This
year it's from the 2nd to the 11th of November, and that's the time frame where you're allowed to display your fireworks.
Do you see the same problems year after year when you get call-outs about fireworks?
Sean, I'm very reluctant not to like an actor and say Macbeth here, but I don't want to tempt fate. People are on the whole pretty savvy and, as I said, streetwise. We don't get a lot of related instances, but we'd like to keep it that way. So by having a chat with you today, just reinforcing that safety message again, read the instructions. Just if you're having your own private little soiree at home, parents tend to imbibe and have the odd glass of wine or so, and then you lose your rationale, you lose your depth of field, your perception. That's when things can start to slip a little bit. So it's just about being a bit, as I keep banging on, streetwise and savvy.
Can alcohol be a factor with problems with fireworks?
Well, for me, particularly, Sean, it's one glass of sherry and I'm anybody. So, it can be. As I've mentioned just a moment ago, you lose your common sense factor. You get perhaps a bit boisterous when you've had a few shandies. Your depth of field, your perception, your common sense, all these things can be altered. Us blokes, probably the temptation to show off, if we're honest, isn't it? So it's reining all that in and just having a good, safe night where everyone goes home in one piece.
If someone is planning on having fireworks at home, where can they find good advice?
Firework Code is out there. There's all manner of advice everyone's on Google, and you name it nowadays. There's all the advice out there under the sun to keep you safe. Read the instructions on the packets of the fireworks. They have to comply to a British standard. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is, but they must comply to a British standard, and read the instructions on the box.
And again, if someone is going to be setting off some fireworks, who should they tell in advance?
Well, this time frame that I mentioned, 2nd to 11th of November, you're allowed to display fireworks. Outside that time frame, you have to make a written request to the fire service on form you have to complete, and then we grant you an exemption. You're allowed to do it outside that time frame, but there is a way of doing that. You have to let the papers know, the press know, so that they know there's going to be a display. And it's that so we don't scare the living daylights out of likes of me, for instance, when I'm sat at home doing the mail crossword of a night time and a dirty great rocket goes off outside my patio door. It's having that consideration for others